One of the things that I was hoping to do this morning was to demonstrate a peer support role play. And before the bulletins were printed for our worship service today, and because of the destination wedding, I decided that to respect time and that I decided to not do that this week. So if you would like more information about my work as a recovery and peer support specialist, I would invite you to see me after the service. But I would first like to welcome you to week 3 of our 2019 I'm In Stewardship campaign and our celebration of Access Sunday. I cannot tell you how many drafts of a sermon that I did last night. I was at my computer trying to figure out what does the Spirit want me to say, but more importantly, what does the congregation need to hear about being an open, loving, and inclusive people. So in your bulletin, there is a quote from Fred Rogers. And as you can see on our altar this morning, that is my trolley from the neighborhood of Make-Believe, part of what was part of Fred Rogers' television show, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. But before we talk about accessibility and inclusion of people who are differently abled, I want us to listen to this word about life from the book of Acts, chapter 3, the first 10 verses. And this is the story of Peter healing the crippled beggar. And instead of reading the text word for word, I have decided to summarize it for us. And in this text, we find a man who is differently able. And every morning, the man is laid at the entrance to the gate called Beautiful. Because this man is different, because he is not able to perform like everyone else, he is an outsider. He is unable to participate in worship or be a presence in the community, which allows him to live a fulfilling life. He has been pressed down to being just a beggar. Now, the actions of both Peter and John helped to change the beggar's life. John and Peter introduced this crippled beggar to Jesus. Because of this introduction, the man was made whole. The man is now able to walk by his 2 feet or with crutches or artificial legs. The man has been made whole by Jesus as he can now participate in worship. He can share with others in the community, and he is finally able to discover who God intended him to be as a beloved child of God. Think about that. How many of you have felt like an outsider? Think about it. I have. You've heard my story before. Now, we are in the midst of our stewardship campaign. Now, when we think of stewardship, I think the first thought that comes to everybody's mind is that of writing a check or emptying one's pocketbook. I want to look at stewardship a little bit differently this morning. I want to look at stewardship with the idea of the spiritual gifts that we bring to the table. And with those spiritual gifts, anything is possible. What gift of the Spirit do you bring to this shared table? What is it? And you know what? It's perfectly okay if you don't know it yet, because you're not alone. I thought I knew what my gifts are when I was in discernment for authorized ministry. I may not be leading a church, but I'm doing ministry. The 4 years in discernment allowed me to discover what my true gifts are. And in the introduction in the bulletin this morning, I finally feel that I am a champion of inclusion for all people. I may not run a church. I'm a member of a church. I bring gifts to the table, but I do ministry beyond the walls of this place. Now I want to offer you another word about life, and this is the word about life that is in your bulletin this morning. And this is a word about life that comes to us from Fred Rogers himself. And this is Fred's take on people who are differently able. What I am trying to do as a person who practices a welcoming and inclusive environment is changing the language. So as you listen to this word about life from Fred Rogers, think about the thoughts and the emotions that you feel as you hear these words. Think about the emotions that you feel, because it's okay to feel them. We're human beings. We are human beings. And I think sometimes as human beings we are denied that. We are denied that because of our skin color, of our gender, of our sexual orientation, of our economic background, our mental and physical abilities. Whatever it is, feel those feelings because you are human beings. Remember that. You are human beings. When was the last time somebody told you that you're a human being? And it's okay to have emotions. Think about that. So Fred Rogers was an American television personality, musician, puppeteer, writer, producer, Presbyterian minister, and most importantly, a truly wonderful neighbor to all people. So hear these words from Fred Rogers. Part of the problem with the word disabilities is that immediately it suggests an inability to see or hear, or walk, or do other things that many of us take for granted. But what if people who can't feel or talk about their feelings or manage their feelings in a constructive way? What if people who aren't able to form close and strong relationships? And for those who cannot find fulfillment in their lives, or those who have lost hope, who live in disappointment and bitterness, and find in life no joy, no love, these, it seems to me, are the disabilities, are real disabilities. Now, as I said, as you heard these words, what emotions ran through your mind? How would you react if I came up to you and said this quote directly in your face? Did you feel sad, outraged, disappointed, frustrated? How are we as a people of faith and moral conscience supposed to help open the eyes of others if we continue to express ourselves in a very derogatory and degrading way? Now, as I said earlier, one of the things that we did in the 9 o'clock education hour, and I was blessed today to teach with our fabulous Director of Spiritual Formation. Karen, where are you? Oh, okay. She's just hiding back there. And basically what a peer support does, a peer support or recovery support specialist, whatever title is comfortable to you, is someone who partners with another individual on their journey as they try to recover from mental health challenges, substance use, or alcohol addictions, or maybe some very, very traumatic experience in their lives. One of the gifts, one of my personal spiritual gifts, is that of compassionate listening. And as I said, being able to just step back and listen. How often do you enter into a conversation with the intent of wanting the focus to be all about you? How many have done that? I know I've done it. I'm not afraid to admit it. If you really want to truly be a compassionate, welcoming, and inclusive person, not just in this place, but wherever you go, it is important that you take a moment to stop and listen. If people were to listen to me early on when I was being bullied all through school and not understanding my challenges, the quality of my life would be different, yes. But if somebody, again, were to ask me if I were to do my life, have a second chance to go through elementary, junior high, and high school, would I do it all over again? Would I change anything? Absolutely not. I'll tell you why. And most of you know this. It's helped me become the person that I am today. It's that simple. You just have to listen. I began to think about the Shadowrock's covenant and the significant role it plays in accessing hope for all people. One of the lines in our covenant that truly spoke to me is that our task together demands a comprehensive view of life, always intentionally pointed towards the future. What this means is that we as a people of faith and moral conscience have lots of work to do, and we do this work with wide open eyes. As we witness firsthand the good and bad parts of life, as we partner with one another and celebrate life despite the ups and downs. Another line of our church covenant that spoke to me as I was writing my sermon last night, those activities which eliminate age barriers, cut across religious dogma, reduce cultural parochialisms, and engage secular people with life's ultimate possibilities. And with these ultimate possibilities, they will be worthy of our best efforts. What is worthy of our best efforts? And I think this last line of our covenant gives us the most straightforward answer. And that is to break down all kinds of barriers that separate us from other people, including everyone here in this place. as a people of faith and moral conscience, we need to begin to break down these barriers that separate us from one another, especially those with different abilities. Now, I want us to now re-look at the Fred Rogers word about life. We're going to look at it, and we're going to frame it into inclusive language. That is the first step in breaking down the barriers when we begin the work of being inclusive of people with different abilities. So listen carefully, that these are still Fred Rogers' words, but I've adapted them to be inclusive for all people. So part of the problem with the word disabilities is it's a problem in general. I was listening to an Australian evangelist recently, and this Australian evangelist was recommended to me by a professor during my undergraduate coursework at Ohio Christian University. This gentleman has different abilities. He was born without arms or legs. Now think about something. Take the word disabled. Put the letters G-O in front of it. You know what that is? It tells you something. God is able. And if God is able, so are you. Isn't that amazing? If God is able, so are you. So are you. Now, when we look at this word about life, but what if people can feel? What if people can talk about their feelings openly and honestly without the fear of judgment, or manage their feelings in a constructive way? What if people are able to form strong and close relationships? And what if people can find fulfillment in life? And for those who think they lost all hope, find it. These people will no longer have to live in disappointment and bitterness. They will find joy and love. And you know what this says to me? Those aren't disabilities. Those are real, true, and prophetic different abilities. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Finally this morning, one of the best ways that we can access hope for any living, breathing, talking human being at any time in life is to be present and listen. Are you ready to go all in and listen to the sound of my voice? Amen.